Greetings and welcome. My name is Mike Bankhead. I am your host. I am a bass player and songwriter from the Gem City, Dayton, Ohio. My guest on today's episode is songwriter, musician, and generally bubbly personality, at least during this conversation, Jovi Espina, who is based in Los Angeles. That's right, back to a California guest on today's episode of the podcast. You're going to find out what Jovi's childhood smelled like, and you're going to find out her approach to writing songs. And there's even a performance. Let's get to the conversation. Hey there, Jovi.
Hi.
It's nice to see you from 2,500 miles away or whatever.
Oh, I know. Thanks so much for reaching out to me and having me on the podcast. Totally unexpected.
I'm glad that you were willing to do this. Dear listeners, I met Jovi when I was in Los Angeles in September at a very lovely and welcoming open mic event where I felt totally at home. And if you want to hear more about that, go back and listen to episode 76, where I talked to the person who was the host of that event. Jovi went up there and played a song and knocked it out of the park, because that's kind of what you do, right? And I want to talk about you and your music and anything else about you that you wish people who you don't know to know.
Okay, all right. Do my best.
So how about introducing yourself to the listeners?
Hello, my name is Jovi. I am in the Los Angeles area. I just relocated from Virginia. And yeah, I'm a singer-songwriter. I play guitar and piano. I write music and I sing.
There's a lot to unpack there. First, I'm going to ask you, how long have you been making music?
Oh my gosh. Probably since I was 10. One of the very first songs I wrote, if not the first song, I recorded it on a cassette tape, and it was all a cappella, and it was about some lost love, and it was like, why, oh, why? My dad listened to it so much, and I really wanted, honestly, to send it to Dream Street, but never followed through with that. And yeah, so I'm 31 now, going on 32. So I guess math, 20 some years now.
I wasn't going to ask how old you were, but thanks for telling me. What's Dream Street? I'm a Generation X person, so there's going to be some understanding gaps here.
So do you remember that point in time where they were marketing boy bands and pop stars through infomercials? Dream Street was this teenage pop boy band kind of thing, and I was in love with all of them.
So this is after Backstreet Boys and NSYNC?
Maybe around the same time. Jesse McCartney came from Dream Street.
I have no idea who that is.
Oof. Beautiful soul.
Like I said, there's a generation gap here, Jovi.
Well, pop music, and yeah, and I just think it's so funny because I wanted to send it to whatever Dream Street's address was, and it was in Burbank, California. And now, here I am in Burbank, California. I just thought that was so interesting to me.
Your path has led you to the more studios per mile of anywhere I've ever seen in my life of the world. It's crazy how many studios there are in Burbank.
Yeah, it's so crazy to me. Everything is here, They make movies, they make TV shows over here, and I'm just like, oh my gosh.
So when you jumped into the Zoom room, I had the volume cranked, and it was just finishing up Tomorrow Will Come, which is track 4 on your EP, which is called Act Accordingly. I'd like you to talk to me about that EP.
Okay.
At length.
So at length. Okay. So that was my first recorded, like professionally recorded body of work. And it was amazing. I have been told that I need to put my music out, but I hadn't really known how to get there. And so 2021, I decided I wanted to pursue creating an EP. And for my birthday, I had a GoFundMe to raise money to go into the studio. And I met my goal of, I believe it was like $3,000, which was amazing. And so I worked with Will Beasley in Richmond, Virginia, and it was the most incredible experience of my life. I could have never thought that it would have been so much fun. Me and Will just like hit it off the bat. I gave him all these references. I was like, I want to kind of get into that pop punk kind of world with like Paramore references, Kings of Leon references, and from like the very beginning, it was just like magic. So I named it Act Accordingly from something my friend said. She said, my friends don't like me because I don't act accordingly. And I thought that was the best phrase ever. I kind of have gone against the grain. I used to work like a 9 to 5, and then I quit that to pursue massage and try to start my own business and all this stuff. So I kind of felt like there are just situations that I've had to go through in my life where you just have to act accordingly. You have to show up and do your thing and keep moving forward. So this EP was kind of just a reminder to myself and all my friends that, you know, that there are situations that you will have to go through, but you just have to act accordingly to get through them, and you will, and you're going to be great. And that's was the goal of the record, was to inspire and also just make people feel seen and not alone in their struggles. And so yeah, I'm super proud of that. I for my Spotify Wrapped, I was my own #1 artist. Oh, I listened to it so much. I'm so proud of that record.
Well, it's good that you still like it, right? Sometimes we make stuff and we don't like it anymore. So that's good that you can listen to it and be like, yeah, I made this.
Yes, absolutely. It's so good.
So we have something in common musically, and you don't know this, but I'm gonna have you opine on it briefly. We're both solo artists that write full band arrangements. Right? I play bass and piano, you play guitar and piano, but like since I saw you at an open mic, I was expecting an acoustic guitar album. I know I shouldn't have been, because you shouldn't prejudge, and no one should know that better than me. I went up at that open mic and played a song on bass, which is what I play, but I write for a full band arrangement. So I was not expecting full band rock and roll arrangements from Jovi, and that is what I got. So I want to know about how you approach that, because we both end up doing the same thing, but I'm sure we do it differently. How do you get from the song that you've written on a piano or on a guitar fleshed out fully? And especially on this EP, I'm hearing multiple guitars, some interesting chord voicings with definitely that kind of emo influence with one of the guitars playing little riffy things. Yeah, I could hear a little bit of that Paramore and Kings of Leon stuff. I actually know who those bands are. Like, it sounded like real drums. It might not be real drums. I might have to give it another good listen. But it is, it's a full band arrangement, and I'm like imagining you out there on tour with like 5 people behind you in an arena. So how do you go from the song that you've written to building it out into a full band arrangement?
That is such a great question, because I have asked that question for such a long time. And honestly, it's kind of an anticlimactic answer, but what Will Beasley helped me write all this stuff. Honestly, I came to him and I was like, I've never really attempted to do a full band thing. I'm not sure where to go. Here are some bands that I like. And he was so stoked. Will is also a songwriter. He has in a band. He's in a band called Wild Truth, one of my favorites. And so I honestly just let him take the lead on it, and he just knocked it out of the park. Some of the riffs I wrote, I would like play them quietly in the studio, and Will would be like, what was that?" And I would be like sheepishly playing it for him, and he was like, "That's awesome. No more secret riffs." Okay, so really having a great partner can just take your music somewhere else. I've had a hard time really trying to find someone that I feel comfortable with. I'm really protective of my music. I as I have a certain sound in my mind, it's so very hard to articulate to other people. But I just felt like when I was in that studio, we'll just made it come to life, and it was just chef's kiss.
So, is the next thing? You live in LA now. Are you going to go back to Virginia for the next record?
That's a good question. I
Notice how I'm
definitely.
assuming you're going to make more records.
Oh, I know. I talked to I work with a medicine woman, and she read my tarot and everything. And I asked her because now being in LA, there is the pressure of being um a good musician. In addition to being talented and sounding good, it's also about promoting yourself and figuring out the right way to do that. So I definitely felt the pressure of like, I need to produce something and put it out so I could be in the running. But when I spoke to her about it, because I was like, well, I've been here for 6 months, and I'm like, what am I doing? And she was like, just do it for fun. Do it for fun right now. If you put too much pressure on it, I don't think you'll enjoy it. So I'm kind of taking my time. Like I was saying earlier, I'm particular about who I work with. So I want to take my time and just see who else is out here. I mean, there are so many different kinds of musicians, so many different genres, and I just like want to make sure that whatever I do is like cohesive and also true to what it is that I want. Which sometimes I don't even really know. I hope that was a good enough answer. It's kind of like I don't know. We're just chilling. We'll see.
There's nothing wrong with not having all the answers all the time.
Yeah, that's a
So,
good point.
so Jovi, when it's time for you to sit down and write, what's the first tool you reach for?
I I'll kind of just like think about like what it is that I want to write. Sometimes a riff will come to me, or I'll just be noodling around in the guitar and see what chord progression comes up. And then more recently, I've kind of been writing more about like relationship stuff. I didn't used to write about that kind of stuff, but just trying to work through all these thoughts that I have. So yeah, I really, for my music, I really reach into my own personal experience because it's what I know and how I feel like I've gone through life and conquered each individual battle for me. And I hope that whatever it is that I go through, that people relate to it. Like I was saying before, is trying to make sure that people feel seen and don't feel alone. Cause that's how I felt when I listened to like emo bands and stuff that were just so heartbroken about things. Like I just felt seen. I just didn't feel so alone. And it just made me feel like, valid. So I'm hoping that these experiences, though personal to me, can be universal to other people and can give them a different perspective on how to get through certain things.
Is that what Good Enough is about?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And when I was writing Good Enough, and also just like in that point in time in my songwriting, I really was just like, I didn't want to write any kind of love song, but I wanted this to be kind of an anthem. Like when I was writing it, I just thought about my friends because I feel like people look at me and they're like, "You're so strong and you got to do all this cool stuff." And I think I'm pretty regular degular and have the same kind of struggles. And whenever I hear them about things that they want to do, I'm like, you're deserving and good enough to achieve it, whatever it is that you want. So yeah, when I was writing that, I just wanted to send a message to all my friends that like, yeah, like you deserve the world because you're the best.
Do you feel more comfortable writing or playing?
I feel more comfortable performing as a whole. I love covers. Yeah, I love doing like, different acoustic spins on different songs and kind of pulling songs out, and people are like, "Oh my gosh!" Like they recognize it, or they can sing along. So I will say I'm more comfortable performing. Writing is not something that, I mean, I enjoy doing it. It's almost like a coping mechanism for myself, right? I don't do it for a job or to just simply produce, but all these songs really mean a lot to me and help me to kind of decipher my thoughts about a certain situation.
Yeah, me too. I write for catharsis and for me first. I really believe that all of us songwriters should write for ourselves first. There's nothing wrong with sharing our art, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to get paid for our hard work. But man, if you're not happy, not even happy, if you're not at least satisfied that you've produced art that you can believe in, then how can you expect to sell it to somebody? Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. To some extent, I'll like revisit songs that I've written years back, and I feel like it's almost just like me speaking to me. So when I listen to my songs, I'm not thinking like, "Oh my God, that's me." Like it just seems so like separate from me. But when I hear it and like really digesting like what even I'm trying to say, I'm like, man, I feel like it's my higher self speaking to me in a certain way.
You want to play a song while we're on? I mean, you can say no, but you are episode 79, and I've had exactly one person actually play a song on the podcast.
I mean, honestly, I would not say no, but I'll pretend like like oh my gosh, totally not ready for.
Oh look, there's a guitar with an arm's reach. This is not a visual podcast, so people are not going to see this. But literally, the guitar was like right next to you. That's.
I mean, that is where it sits, but it's very very nice for it to be available.
That's fantastic.
Oh my gosh, was there one that you wanted to hear acoustic, or something new or old, or is there?
Well, definitely one of yours, but play something you believe in.
Okay. All right.
I'm just gonna like seeing the joy in your face while you play. We tune because we care.
I finally wrote a song in drop D. I don't know why that's a thing I wanted to do, but when I was
because you want to get out your electric axe.
Yes, I want to. I need an electric guitar. I need a band. That's my main goal. But this is the latest song that I've written, and honestly, like I'm obsessed with it. It's not. I don't know if it's done yet, but I feel like it's at a pretty good spot. And like I said, when I'm part of or at my workplace, we have a medicine woman, and we did a group healing session, and parts of the song kind of came up to me. So, yeah. This one is called "We'll Never Know." Let's see. Let's do this. Come along with me and don't be scared. I know it might be temporary, but I'm already there. Meet me in the middle. It'll be alright. I know I can put up a fight, but for you I try. Ooh. And it's not easy, these thoughts sinking deep into the unknown. So how far will you go to make our dreams reality? Live ever happily, do you know just how far will you go? Ooh. Ooh. We'll take our sweet time, we won't let it burn. Like sugar we could caramelize, or be a lesson to learn. I know it's risky, maybe I'm still scarred, but even if it breaks my heart, we're only miles apart. Ooh. And it's not easy, these thoughts sinking deep into the unknown. So how far will you go to make our dreams reality? Live ever happily, do you know just how far will you go? Ooh. We'll never know if we're going nowhere. But is it enough to believe we'll get there? Yeah. And we'll never know if we're going nowhere. Yeah. But is it enough to believe we'll get there? Yeah, and it's not easy, these thoughts sinking deep into the unknown. So how far will you go to make our dreams reality? Live ever happily, do you know just how far will you go? Ooh. Supposed to end on that.
That's awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Is your microphone up by your head?
Yeah.
On your so the guitar didn't get picked up super good, but your voice did. And I'm not taking it out. I loved it.
Okay.
I was like imagining it. Now that I've heard your EP, I was like imagining it with like wall of guitar behind.
Yeah, right. I kind of honestly, because I've written 2 songs since I've been here, and I kind of am riding that wave of pop punk kind of thing. I do have some tracks that are more pop-ish sounding, and I would love to see where that goes. But I love being a rock star.
You mentioned you're not sure if that one's finished, so that leads to the natural question: how do you know when you're finished?
Gosh, that's a good one. How do you know? I feel like have been times in the studio where like for example with Drive, when I was working with Will, he was like, I think like he definitely he rearranged it for me, and then he also was like, I think you just need to add like one more line. There are a couple of songs in there that were like maybe just one more, because I don't know if I'm ready to go on into the chorus. I don't know if I'm ready for that yet. So I feel like right now the first verse is a little short, and the way that I wrote it was actually the 2 verses were in the at the top of the song, and then the chorus was actually the second verse, but then it made the song very long. So I'm happy with this version right now, but I do feel like the first verse is a little short. But yeah, how do you know? I guess when it just feels right. I operate a lot on like how I'm feeling, which is a good and bad thing, but it feels pretty good right now.
Why is it a bad thing?
I think there are certain times when it comes to music that, or maybe not even music. Let's just like backtrack there. Um, I feel like sometimes your mind can hold you back from bigger things because it's natural, because it wants to protect you and keep you in like in your comfort zone so that you don't get hurt. And there are a lot of times where I'm like, I don't feel like doing it, or it feels doesn't feel good. But at the same time, like there are things where like I know that I feel scared, but there's nothing to be afraid of. You know, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't pursue it per se. So yeah, sometimes you know, like they say that motivation is something that you have to like, or was it like motivation expires but discipline prevails, like that kind of thing. I am like not always the most motivated person. A lot of times I feel like I don't want to do anything, but I think there are some feelings that don't really serve you sometimes, and you have to push through it to see the other side, right?
Nah, that sounded pretty grown.
I've read a handful of self-help books.
So here come the questions that I ask every guest.
Okay.
The first of which is think back to toddler Jovi. What's the first song you can remember hearing in your life?
Oh gosh. Now that I think about it, if I'm thinking way back, gosh, the first one that comes to mind is "You're the Inspiration" by Chicago.
Were you born when that song was released? I'm going to Google it. I don't think you were.
I don't. I do. I was born in '91. Was it in the later '90s? I mean, that was when they kind of shifted from the big band stuff, I think.
Oh, it was before then. So my late father, Chicago was his favorite band.
Oh,
so depending on how you feel about that particular band, I had either the fortune or the misfortune of hearing everything they released my entire life, because Dad bought every single album they put out on vinyl. And if you know anything about this band, they put out a lot of records.
They really did.
Like, actually, they're still putting out a lot of records. They're not really good anymore. Here's the thing. I have a love-hate relationship with them because I heard all those songs so many times.
Sure.
But now that I'm old, and, you know, when I was a kid, I wasn't a musician, but now that I'm old and know how to play, when I go listen to some of the old stuff with my musician hat on, I'm like, oh man, this composition's really good. And also,
yes,
these dudes could really play. You're the Inspiration, January 1985. See, I knew you weren't.
Oh my gosh, I thought it was
from the album. Like... But that's good though. It means you were exposed to. So, how did you get exposed to that song? Is what I'm going to ask you next, logically.
Sure. My dad is really into like classic rock, so I mean, that was the first Chicago song that I heard, and then as I got older, I heard like the classics, like 25 or 6 to 4. I was like, oh my god, how have I not heard the song? But my dad is a big music fan, and it's cute. I've now made this my goal while I'm here in LA, is that I would like to play at the Troubadour because of its history.
Legendary.
And my dad, yeah, and my dad, when he came here, he was like, you know, as a kid growing up in the Philippines and listening to rock and roll, he'd heard of places like, you know, LA and the Troubadour. And when he said the Troubadour, I was like, yeah, like I've got some friends who have played there before. And now I'm like, I want to play there because I think that would just be really cool.
For the listeners, that song's on Chicago 17. Yes, they named the records by number. And I have that somewhere because I inherited that from my dad. So somewhere in this room, I have that on vinyl back there with all the vinyl.
There is like I think Roku. I think the Roku channel or something. I tried to watch like a documentary about Chicago, and they just keep going.
Yeah, I've seen a couple YouTube concerts in the last couple years. It's kind of a ship of Theseus thing with them, right? They've replaced so many parts of that band. Can we still call it Chicago?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but if you like their music and want to, you might actually probably already know this, but maybe the listeners don't. There is a Russian musician that grew up in Soviet times and somehow was exposed to Chicago. Don't know how. Fell in love with them, and he's got a band that he basically loves Chicago and other bands, but he does tribute stuff. This gentleman transcribed all of the instruments from listening to the vinyl. This is how gifted of a musician he is. Like, literally listened to the vinyl a million times, wrote out all the parts, and we're talking Chicago, so it's like a saxophone, a trumpet, a trombone, multiple guitars, right? And assembled a band, and this group of Russians plays like Chicago tribute songs, and they are spot on and perfect, and it really gives you an appreciation for the like you write, so you will appreciate the composition. And I cannot remember for the life of me what the gentleman is called, and I wouldn't pronounce his name right anyway. But if you go to YouTube and search for Russian Chicago tribute, you will find a million videos of this gentleman and his band doing all the classics that you know. And they also do a really good version of the Earth, Wind, and Fire song. Do you remember 17th day of September?
Yeah. I learned that one on the guitar. That one's one of those like, oh, they can play that on acoustic? You sure can.
Yeah. So you're going to like these videos then. The funny thing is none of these guys speak English, of course. But they have to sing in English because the lyrics are in English. And you really don't even hear the Russian accent except for on just a couple of words. But you can tell that they're like literally just aping whatever songs on the vinyl. But it's high quality, it is really good, and it gave me a renewed appreciation for Chicago's approach to music composition. So, yeah, Dad, there you go. I guess he was right about them. Like 10-year-old me's in shambles right now.
Yeah. Like, oh no.
What did your childhood smell like, Jovi?
What did it smell like? What an interesting question. I think of my mom's cooking. Lots of ginger then. Ginger and garlic and yeah, let's go with that. And that sounds great, honestly.
It does. That sounds delicious, actually. It makes me want to go find. I actually have ginger and garlic downstairs. I do not have a lot of other accoutrement to put them with, and there's the challenge. I like that. So, where can people go find you if they want to find you on social media or listen to your music?
Sure. You can find me wherever you stream music, on Spotify, Apple Music, all that good stuff, under Jovi Espina. And if you'd like to follow me on Instagram, it is at Songs by Jovi. Yeah, I'm on Facebook as well for like the music page. I don't update it too often, so you're gonna see me looking much younger and shorter hair. But yeah, I'm pretty active on Instagram. Haven't figured out the TikToks yet.
All right, so there you go, folks. Jovi, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me. You certainly didn't have to, and I appreciate it. And I can't wait to listen to whatever you go to the studio and record next.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It was great. I had a lot of fun just talking about me.
I also had a lot of fun letting Jovi talk about Jovi, and I'd like to thank her again for taking the time to do so. Thank you, dear listener, for being here, and I encourage you to go look for Jovi's music. It's really good. You're going to get 3 podcasts from me this week. The next episode is Wednesday with a film director. Yeah, that's right. We're going to go films on the You Could Be My Aramis podcast. And then we've got another musician for you this Friday. So please come on back and listen to some more. Thanks. Have a good rest of your Monday.